Welcome back to The Growth Show. I'm your host, Whitney Bateson, and I am super thrilled to welcome Courtney Vickery to the podcast today. So Courtney Vickery, MSRDLD, is a multi-passionate entrepreneur in the weight inclusive space. She's an anti-diet dietitian and certified intuitive eating counselor with her own private practice, Vickery Wellness. She's also the CEO of Declet Designs, her website and branding studio for weight inclusive businesses. She has a double dose of knowledge with bachelor's degrees in political science and dietetics. We'll get into her backstory a little bit in the interview. Plus, she has a master's degree in foods and nutrition from the University of Georgia and actually still teaches an undergraduate course there as well. Her career journey includes working as a director of corporate health services and community outreach, clinical dietitian, managing group fitness programs and community health programs, roles in healthcare administration and corporate health. So she's definitely done a lot. She's even stepped in as the interim director of the dietetic internship at the University of Georgia. At home, Courtney shares her life with her husband of 15 years. They are actually high school sweethearts, 2 kids, a dog named Oliver, and 2 kitty cats. She is the perfect blend of Enneagram 1 determination and laid-back coffee shop aficionado. When she's not helping therapists and dietitians rock their brands and websites, you can catch her chilling at a coffee shop, sipping tea, or spending time with her awesome family. So she is just such a wealth of knowledge, obviously, and we are going to be talking all about local SEO today. So we are really going to be picking into Courtney's brain when it comes to what local SEO is, what businesses it's good for, and how to get started with it with some really easy, simple tips that she's going to go through. So let's dive into the conversation. Hi, Courtney. Welcome. I'm so glad that we're getting this chance to have you on the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So Courtney, you are a fellow dietitian turned web designer, marketer, branding expert. So before we dive in, what's your backstory? Why websites and branding and dietetics?
Yes.
And all of it.
So short story as I can make it. I started out in political science. I worked in politics for a year, decided that was not for me. I was also in eating disorder recovery at the time, which I didn't tell anyone. But I had an eating disorder from the time I was 8 until I was 22.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't really want to study dietetics when I was in recovery. So once I was out of recovery, I went back and studied dietetics and stayed for my master's and stayed on as a research assistant. And then after that, I worked inpatient, I worked outpatient. And through all of this, like I have always loved like the program development piece, the marketing piece. Like I would always create the flyers and things that people needed. I blogged. I had a food blog back when it was super cool and I used Blogger. My whole family are entrepreneurs. I had a lemonade stand and other kinds of little businesses as a kid. So it's kind of nobody was really surprised that I ended up opening my own business. Maybe a little weird how I got here. But in 2020, I left my director of corporate health role at the hospital. I wasn't really acting as a dietitian. I was doing community program development. And I was also over a 24/7 wellness facility. So I was doing the marketing. I was designing the billboards. And, I also introduced a software system for them. They had been using QuickBooks for thousands of members and there was no system in place. So I spent an entire year like going through paper files and my team helped me and we transitioned to an actual software. So I learned a lot in that process and realized hey, I like this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in 2020, I left and opened my practice and of course made my own website, did my own branding, made my logo and just really got into all of that. And then people kept asking for help. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it. I got to do it right. So after several months, I was like, I'm going to open an LLC and just see what happens. And then now this is what I do full time. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you still practice as well. You have a practice.
I still have a practice. I don't see anyone one-on-one. I have courses and then I do media requests and I do teach a class at the University of Georgia online still. So
yeah. Just wearing all the hats.
Yeah. All the hats.
I love it. Yeah. I feel like that's a very common thing for dietitians is that we are multi-passionate. We like having our hands on a lot of different things, even though we may, it may all kind of like have this common thread of nutrition. it's like, well, I just don't want to be doing the same thing every day.
Yes.
So,
I need some variety.
right. I love it. Well, I'm excited to be having you sitting in your web marketing role with us today and talking about this really important topic when it comes to succeeding online for any business, honestly. We'll get into all of the businesses that would benefit from this topic of local SEO. And it's something that I haven't talked about on the podcast before. So I'm very excited to have you here and walk us through this, why it's important, what it is, who it's right for. So we're going to be just like picking your brain. So first off, what is the difference between local SEO and regular SEO?
Yes, I feel like this is the most common question I get. So basically, when everyone hears SEO, I think they almost always obviously think of their website, but they think of just blogging for keywords and getting a bunch of visits and then getting ad revenue. And that is a form of SEO.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I specialize in. I specialize in local SEO, which is a combination of strategy on your website, but first and foremost, your Google business profile and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that, it's set up properly. And then you have strategies around citations and reviews and that kind of works together with your website. But it's again, local based keywords, which is a totally different thought process. You're not looking for, someone looking for a recipe isn't looking for a dietitian near me necessarily because
Mm-hmm.
you're only licensed in certain areas. So that's why I've kind of
Right.
really wanted to focus on local SEO to help people because they can only work where they are licensed. And it doesn't matter if Susie Q in another state finds your website if they can't work with you. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you want to be spending that time getting in front of the right people
mhm.
and having those strategies. And so it has a website component. It has the Google business profile, which I want to kind of explain that one a little bit more too. So does the blogging and like the regular SEO, the local SEO and the regular SEO still play together in some way, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So, there's kind of almost three buckets, right? Like you've got local SEO strategy, which is like off page SEO and the Google business profile. And then you have on page and off page SEO for your website. So on page SEO is what I would call the technical stuff. Like that's the making sure everything's structured properly and that all the, you've got your internal links set up properly. You've got your
Mm-hmm.
H1 tags, you don't have a million of those on your pages
Mm-hmm.
and everything is, set up as a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to make sure that while we're blogging, we're doing location based keywords. So
Mm,
for example, you could say like a dietitian's picks for best restaurants in X city, like things that
okay.
are, focusing on your area, but also still related to your topic and your niche.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I love that. And so you can just be kind of localizing some of those
Mhm.
topics that you probably already want to be talking about. But if you're
Right.
really wanting to devote some serious energy and time into local SEO, it's taking that additional step
Mhm.
of doing that. And then
Yes.
also incorporating like the local keywords in the larger page
Mhm.
keywords and optimization as well, as opposed to kind of being maybe more general and not
Yeah.
local.
Right. So yeah, like I always recommend having, making sure that your foundation is good for both having your Google business profile set up and verified, and then
Mm-hmm.
also having a structurally sound website. And then after that, you can start, adding on some strategy around local SEO.
Uh-huh.
Because if you don't have, like, let's say you write a bunch of blog posts about local SEO related topics, but you don't have a verified Google business profile, it might work, but it's not going to be as effective.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so the Google business profile is like when someone's searching in Google Maps, trying to find
Mhm.
something, or they're searching on Google in general for a dietitian near me. It's like that listing that appears
Mhm.
that's not a website.
Right.
It's something that looks different, right?
Correct. Yes. So it's
Okay.
under like your map listings. So whenever I do an audit for someone, I show them where they're showing up for dietitian near me or dietitian in Athens, Georgia. And the desktop results, like, well, the regular Google search results
Mm-hmm.
versus like the map results,
Mm-hmm.
or the local pack is what we call it. So we're
Okay.
trying to, show them that, yeah, sure, maybe you rank, higher on the regular search, which would be great, but maybe you're not, but it would be easier to rank on the map search, which is what shows up at the top anyways when you're doing
Mm-hmm.
location searches like that.
Mm. Okay. Yeah. And they both have different content, that
Yes.
profile, that business profile we'll talk about reviews and what should go in there and all of that. But then your website also has content, and there can be overlaps, but
Mm-hmm.
they're basically kind of trying to capture people in two different ways, and they are two separate things, but you can like have your
Yeah.
website in your profile, like linked and all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Like your goal is to get them to go to your website. So, having an SEO optimized description of your business, making sure what we call NAP, like your name, your address, and your phone number, if those things are public, that they're the
Mm-hmm.
same everywhere, like down to
Mm,
the suite number. Like you
okay.
don't want to have, 123 Main Street, suite number C, but then on your website it's 123 Main Street, no suite number. Like
Mm,
it's consistency that lets not just humans know that you're, trustworthy, but Google
right.
know, okay, this is a legitimate business who is being consistent, and this is actually where they're located because I've seen it a million times,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no question there.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. So yeah, what are some mistakes that people make when it comes to local SEO?
Yes.
Aside from that one.
So first I would say not claiming your business profile, like your Google
Uh-huh.
business profile. They don't know how, or they don't get it verified, or they
Mm-hmm.
don't have one. So what happens is either you create one or Google just finds your information and creates one for you. I've
Okay.
had that happen where there's duplicates. So then we have to get rid of the duplicate that Google created and be like, no, this is the right one.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually a pretty common thing that I help people fix. And that, and then not having consistent name, address, phone number information. Another one, since a lot of my clients are virtual, is that they pick a really large service area. Like I was
Mm.
fixing someone's this past week, doing like what I call a tech tune up for their local SEO, and they had their service area as the United States.
It's a little
And
broad.
Google does
It's
not
not
like that.
local.
Yeah, it's not local, and Google does not like that at all. So
Yeah.
you want to stay within 1 to 2 hours of your actual location, even if your
Okay.
address is not public. So
Okay.
I wouldn't have like my Athens address and then try to say that I'm located in, South Carolina.
Okay.
That would be a red flag for Google to be like, that doesn't make sense. That's not local.
Okay.
So being careful with that. And then ignoring reviews, like not responding to them at all, but
Mm-hmm.
also being careful that you aren't acknowledging that they're a patient because of HIPAA is like a tricky line to walk. Because you don't want to say, like, oh, we loved having you as a patient at XYZ because you're publicly acknowledging that they were a patient.
Mm-hmm.
They can do that, but we shouldn't do that really. So I
Okay.
always recommend like giving a pretty vague but standard response that's kind but not specific. So like
Mm-hmm.
we love all of our clients at XYZ and we try to provide the best service, And the same
Okay.
thing with negative reviews. Have a standard response to that. Don't say, well, you did XYZ. Say our policies at this practice are, our
Yeah.
cancellation policy is this and we apply it to all of our clients kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because, obviously I use Google Maps every day. And so you
Hmm.
see reviews. I really trust reviews. You
Yeah.
see businesses interacting and all of that. But as healthcare professionals, there are these other things that we need to keep in
Mhm.
mind. And so we just can't be, especially because these people that are leaving reviews, yeah, that a lot of times you can see their full name. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, throwaway account or whatever, but yeah, there's like that additional level, but don't let that stop you, because I've also
Right.
had people be concerned about like putting testimonials on their website and
Hmm.
worrying about that piece of it. But you can just use initials on your website or something
Hmm.
like that. But with Google reviews, it's a little bit tougher to kind of control what that person is sharing and divulging about themselves and that identification. So it's okay, you can handle it. Just like you mentioned, you can
Hmm.
just be more vague in your response and
Yes.
then you're good to go.
Just have that corporate speak ready to go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so you brought up negative reviews too, and I think
Mhm.
that especially for us, we care about people, we care
Mhm.
what people think, and so that can be a scary thing to think that it's going to be great to get positive reviews, but what do we do about
Yeah.
those negative reviews that come through? Should we just like not even do it because it's too scary? The answer
Yeah.
is no.
You're right. Yeah, no, I definitely recommend still having your profile and still, allow people to give feedback. I think that it is scary to get feedback. I'm very much a recovering people pleaser and
Mm-hmm.
rejection sensitive, whatever.
Yep, yep,
So it does
same.
affect me, but I also, I'm not going to shy away from allowing people to leave reviews because they are a good tool, and hopefully you'd have more positive ones anyways. And even if
Mm-hmm.
you have a negative one, it's not the end of the world. So,
Yeah. And it's like getting more comfortable with all of these things over time. Like the first time that I had negative feedback from a client or a negative situation, it was hard. I cried
Yeah.
to my business coach. Like I
Mm-hmm.
journaled about it. Like it was
Yep.
a whole process.
Yep. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah. And so, but then the next time and the next time, and like, it's not,
Mhm.
you, like things are still going to trigger us. Like it's fine. We're
Yeah.
human, but the more you deal with these kinds of things, like you mentioned too, just having some pat responses so that if someone is going to complain and you start seeing this happen more frequently, it's like, okay,
Mhm.
what process can I put into place that allows
Yes.
me to just deal with this and say it's a normal part of business rather
Mhm.
than being like, now I have to come up with a response. And it's like, no, we've had people that complain about the cancellation policy because, they don't like having to put down a deposit for their call and then they
Right.
didn't show whatever. So it's like, all right, just have a pat response. And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
energy around it can be a little bit dissipated.
Yeah, and I feel like most consumers are pretty more discerning these days, especially looking at reviews and that they can see a pattern. Like if I look at reviews and I see a couple of negative ones, if they say the same exact thing, then it's kind of like, okay, well, that might be an
Mm.
issue. And is that an issue for me?
Hmm.
And kind of let them be the judge, kind of give them a little bit of trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like when I'm looking at restaurant reviews, it's like if all the negatives are just about service, but like
Yeah.
the food is good, I'm like, maybe I'll suck it up. Like if I
Yeah,
have
we'll
to
try
ask for the check a few
it.
times, I'll
Yeah,
be okay as long as the food's good. Yeah. So
exactly.
that's a really good point that people, we also have to kind of give people the benefit of the doubt too when they're reading and going through that. So glad
Hmm.
we kind of talked about that because I think that probably could be something either maybe that's not your first thought when you're thinking about doing this, but maybe it's something that's going to come up down the line and just
Yeah.
be prepared that you've got some tools in your tool belt to deal with
Hmm.
that and navigate that. That's great. So also before we even go into like some steps for people to get forward moving with this, I want to clarify who this is right for.
Yeah.
So we know that there's a lot of virtual practices out there. There's also ones that are brick and mortar, or maybe they're hybrid. So who is local SEO right for, and what kind of business is it maybe not the right fit for?
Yeah. So Google Business Profile is technically for brick and mortar locations. That doesn't mean that there aren't service based businesses, which is how I usually handle virtual practices, and my own business is a virtual business.
Mm-hmm.
But, what do you look for when you look at the maps? You're looking at reviews, but you're looking for an address.
Yeah.
You're looking for directions.
Mm-hmm.
So, there are ways, or, I hate to say ways around it, but it allows for you to use service businesses because I think about like a plumber. Like, have
Mm-hmm.
you ever been to a plumber's office? Probably not.
No,
Like
no.
they're service based business because they're coming to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're kind of using that theory around like virtual, like we're quote unquote coming to you virtually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I will say Google sometimes does make it really hard for virtual businesses to get verified. It
Okay.
used to be that they sent you a postcard with a code on it to your
Oh,
address,
right. Yeah.
and they don't do that anymore. They do usually a video call, and you have to show them your space. And I've had
Oh,
people say that
wow.
they like made them walk out onto the street and like show the street sign and like show the front of the building, and like you
And
have to have
Google
the
knows
name
what
of
it's
your
supposed to
business.
look like
Yeah,
because they've
exactly.
mapped every inch of the world. Okay.
But I
Yeah.
I had somebody one time tell me that they photoshopped their business name on their house so that it looked like it was a business. And I was like, I don't know if I would do that, but
Yeah.
do what you need, I guess.
Right. Because that is, I mean, it's a really good point about the plumber. It's like they are still, any virtual business is still a legitimate business. And if they're still
Mhm.
operating within state lines, like to your point,
Yeah.
it's not that you are trying to reach the United States. You are trying to
Mhm.
reach, some parts of Michigan, but you're doing it virtually. But
Yeah.
those are still the people that you're trying to reach. But yeah, it can be definitely a sticky subject because also if
Mhm.
someone's like, oh, wow, your office is right down the street from me. Like, this is going to be great. And it's like, yeah, that's not the
Actually.
office or
Mhm.
whatever the case may be. Okay.
And you can hide your address. That's what I usually do if someone's virtual and they are using like you can't use like even a UPS address, even though like
Mm-hmm.
UPS gives us quote unquote real addresses.
Mm-hmm.
They Google knows that that's a mailbox. So
Okay.
you have to use like a physical, this is one thing at this location kind of address. So you're probably going to have to use your home address unless you have a real office somewhere. So
Okay.
you can hide that. So you're not having to
Okay.
publicly display like, here's my home.
Okay.
So you hide it and you just select like service area. And then you go in and select like the cities or the counties, again, not more than 2 hours away from you.
Okay.
So,
All right. So the short answer is it can work for virtual businesses, but it's set up and meant for brick and mortar. So
yeah.
if you have a business where you have people coming in, or maybe you sharing office space with another practice and having people come into that space, like this is great. You should definitely hop on the local SEO bandwagon
Yeah.
immediately to get this going for you. But then if you're purely virtual, maybe give it a shot, but
Yeah.
could go either
First,
way.
make sure that you can verify your Google business profile. I mean, there's
Okay.
other things we can do, but again, that's kind of the
First
the
step.
main thing you want to make sure you have.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of laid that out because I wanted to make sure anyone listening, they're like, well, is this going to work for me or not?
Yeah.
You
I don't
know.
want them to think that they can't do local SEO. I just want them
Mm-hmm.
to know that there's going to be some more barriers
Mm-hmm.
to, someone that comes to me and says, "Can you help me verify my Google business profile?" Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're in person, that part's easy.
Mm-hmm.
But like if you're not in person, then we have to kind of think through like, okay, what does this look like, and still do it ethically and
Mm-hmm.
make
Yep.
sure that we can get you verified first, because
Yep.
our service is based around the Google business profile.
Mm-hmm. And
Yes, that's what
yeah.
we mostly help with. I do have clients that are long-term SEO clients that the strategy does start to include the website and us making pages and posts for those local topics we talked about. But
Mm-hmm.
the first step is like the whole first month is us cleaning up your Google business profile, writing that description, getting your services and products listed on your profile, having
Okay.
your frequently asked questions listed on your profile.
Oh, wow.
Make sure you have images and your logo, and then we start cleaning up all the citations, which is a whole nother basket of things.
Yeah. What is the
Um,
citations?
yeah, so they're kind of like the backlink of local SEO. So
Okay.
you know how there's several business directories, like even maps on Apple, that's a directory. So you just want to
Okay.
make sure that first of all you're listed on that at all, and that
Mm-hmm.
the name, address, phone number is correct. So like right now I'm doing, think I got like 3 citation and column campaigns going on at the same time right now
Uh-huh.
for 3 different clients. And I'm
Okay.
having to, check, like I have a team helping, but like we're checking
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that all of the information on the directories they're already in are correct. And those are directories that they probably didn't even submit to. Like
Yeah.
Google just found it and put the information in there.
So
So now
helpful.
we're going through, I know, so helpful. Thank you. So we're going in and like making sure that it's the correct information that we want in there so that it's the
Mm-hmm.
same everywhere. And then
Mm-hmm.
also going to those high value directories that are either like Apple Maps is of course high value, but then we have Yelp, that's still a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also making sure you're in relevant directories as far as like what services you provide. Like we're not going to
Mm-hmm.
put you in a plumbing directory. Like we're going to put you
Right.
in like a medical directory. So
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Okay. Wow. So many aspects to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's really interesting to kind of know the sequence of how you're focusing on is like, okay, we're actually taking a step away from looking at the website, and we want to make sure that
Mhm.
this profile is set up and working and has the website linked to it, but then you start
Mhm.
layering on these other tactics that are just going to make it that much more powerful, but we want
Right.
a good foundation first.
Yes. And when we look at like ranking for local SEO, so again, if you're looking at your Google search, that's everywhere. It's like the world, or at least the
Yeah.
US when you're looking. Local search, we use a grid, and it has like, I usually do a 5 mile radius. And for every dot on that grid, it'll tell you where you're ranking for that keyword. So at your address, you should be number one. I'm standing in your address. You should be number
Yeah.
one for this word, hopefully. I've
Hmm.
seen it not happen though.
Hmm.
And then as you go further out from that circle, that's where we're trying to get your ranking higher so that the people that are
Okay.
physically closest to you, when they search
Hmm.
dietitian near me and Google knows they're on XYZ street,
Yeah.
you are over here, you're the closest one.
Okay.
So
So it's
it's a
doing
little
that
different.
work. Yeah. I like, yeah, the analogy of just like, okay, it's this radius that you just want to keep, because obviously there's going to be more well, there might be a lot of competition wherever you are. If you're in the middle of Chicago, and there's a
That
lot
is
of
one.
dietitians.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
very competitive there, but you are close to that location, closer than the one that's an hour outside the city. So you want to rank higher than that one that's further away. So it is this game of both like ranking higher, but then also now you have this location aspect in the mix of it.
Yes.
Industry. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there's lots of like factors that play into it. The same with regular SEO, where we know it's just so many factors, but local SEO, while there are some similarities between regular and local, there's definitely some differences too.
Yeah. I think like outside of like the business profile being a totally separate entity, like as far as your website, like the same principles apply. You're just focusing on like a local keyword. And also just like you would do schema markup for other topics, there's local business schema that you can do on your site. So going in and use Rank Math or Yoast or whatever SEO plugin you're using, or if you want to do it yourself, you can do that too without a plugin. And, again, going in and making sure that the name, address, phone number, and your hours are all consistent. That's another big one I see, is that they'll have their hours like totally different on their profile versus their website. But you can use that to easily mark up the schema for local business. And, you probably already have the frequently asked questions schema on there too, but that can include some local information.
Okay. And so, you're basically like schema markups for anyone, the uninitiated is, and you can, expand on this, but it's basically just telling search engines like this information is this thing. It's for local
like a
businesses.
Tag.
Yeah. Okay. Because otherwise, it's just going through all this text. It doesn't know what's going on. And same with like recipes, anyone who uses a recipe plugin, it actually is adding this code behind the scenes. Google, this is a recipe. You can actually format it and show it to people that are looking for recipes. So it's the same kind of thing. Makes it faster and easier for Google to like get the information, display it correctly.
Exactly. And that's another thing, like, people hear, okay, well, if I do schema markup and if I do this thing, then I'm going to rank higher. But it's not one thing, because then someone will tell you like schema doesn't matter at all. And it's like, well, not by itself. Like it's a big picture thing and all these pieces moving together. And at the same time, I want to tell people listening, like, don't get overwhelmed. Start small. Just check and see if you have your Google business profile first.
Yeah. And what it says, what it looks like, is it accurate? That kind of stuff.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's a really good point, that, you're going to hear people maybe saying this one thing is what's most important and all of that. But a lot of these things too, it's not going to, once you set up that schema markup as an example, you don't have to do it again. Now, the one thing you should be doing is if you're changing your hours, it sounds like, and I would be guilty of this too, probably, if I was kind of changing my hours where I moved to different places, I know I would probably be updating it in one place and then forgetting to update it in another. So maybe it's that having that little checklist or something like that. If there's certain things that you're changing about your business that you need to actually make sure it's updated on the website, updating your profile, and if there's anywhere else that you're updating it. Because I know for us, as business owners, it's like there's a million different things that we've actually touched and set up. And if we're not updating them all the time, we kind of forget like, oh, that thing, over there. And it sounds like it really does matter. If you don't update your hours on your site, it could start having a negative impact on your ranking. And we wouldn't want that.
Right. Yeah. Because, again, if you think about like being trustworthy and being consistent, like say you looked at a doctor's office and they said they were open 9 to 12, but really they were open like 9 to 10. I mean, that's a crazy hour, but you know what I mean? Like it's just, it makes your brain go, is that questionable? Are they real? Are they professional? That kind of thing.
Yep. Absolutely. Because this is a whole different game. It's not people are checking out your website and all of that, but they are, because they're local, they're looking for a business that is operating and doing what they say they're going to do. And if that information is not accurate, you're going to have problems.
Right. Exactly.
Definitely experienced that, where you see a bunch of reviews saying they said that they close at 4, but I went at 3 and the doors were closed.
The door was closed. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
we don't want that.
Great. Sounds wonderful.
Yes.
So what are some things, if there is a business, let's say a business has their Google business, because we've established like you need to have that, your listing. But what are some other things that businesses can be doing to improve their local SEO?
Mhm. So most people don't know that you can post on your Google business profile just like you can post on social media. So you can post it as a post, which is exactly what it sounds like, or you can post it as an event. So like if you had
Okay.
like an event, so for example, I'm actually doing an in-person event next week as like part of a panel of speakers. So if I were worried about ranking higher for my private practice, I would go and make that an event and like make an image for that and have information for it and maybe put it on my website because
Mm.
it's a local thing that you could like signal to Google, like, here I am going out
Yeah.
into the world
Yep. In the place I told you I
locally.
am
And
doing
I'm
things.
being presented as an expert in this topic and,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. But yeah, like part of our services is we post once a week on our clients' profiles. And those posts aren't just, they're like miniature blog posts in a way because we're focusing on a keyword based off the research we did initially. So
Okay.
like we have a whole list of keywords that we have picked, like the top 20 to 50. And then, we're going through and picking what things we want to highlight first, and also the client has input. So they're like, I'm writing a blog post on this topic actually.
Hmm.
So we might do a post on that topic and have the call to action be to go to that blog post.
Okay.
You don't have to do it a ton. It's not like social media where you have to be on there every day and nobody's like liking and commenting on your
Right.
post. But, once a month at minimum, once a week would be nice,
Okay.
because they're not really hard. And also the images aren't like super stylized. They can be stock photos, brand photos of
Hmm.
people or food or whatever is your style.
Okay.
So that, and then if you do use social media, starting to use like location tags
Mm.
and showing and signaling again, like, here I am over here. I'm this little dot on the map
Yeah.
and I'm posting this stuff and I'm talking about this topic. And again, that's just another little signal to send to Google that, oh, this business is located here. I've seen it on their Google business profile. I've seen it on their website. And now I'm
Hmm.
seeing it on their social media. So
Hmm.
kind of tying those things together.
Okay. All right. Just, yeah, again, it sounds like just consistency and
Mm-hmm.
actually showing up in these other places that are really not talked about very much. It's all social or blogging, but it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
there's some other little things you could be doing that, like you mentioned, don't take a ton of time, but
Right.
it's those little
Mm-hmm.
things that add up. And if you're already doing a blog post and
Mm-hmm.
repurposing that in your business into an email to your list, into some social posts and a LinkedIn post,
Yep.
add a little post to
Mm-hmm.
your profile, your Google
Yeah.
profile, as another thing to do.
And there's tools that you can use to automate that to like schedule it. I don't want to say automate it. People think
Mm,
I'm going to say that you can automate what you're writing, but you can automate the posting.
okay.
So like Bright Local has like a Google Business Profile scheduler. I I will say I used to be an AppSumo junkie, and officially this year I've unsubscribed because I cannot buy any more software. That's my rule this year, and I've already broke it today.
Keep on doing. Oh, wow.
It wasn't AppSumo though, and it's actually something I think is going to really help me. It's tracking my time and like what apps I use on my computer because I'm
Mm,
time blind and I will work until midnight. So it helps me know what I'm actually doing. But
yeah.
all that
Worthy,
to
worthy
say,
investment.
yes, it was only $9, so
Yeah.
one time. It's
That's
fine.
good. Yes.
It's fine.
It's totally
But
fine.
I did find one on AppSumo last year that I really only used for scheduling posts
Uh-huh.
because it's simple. It does what I need it to do. I think it was called Rank Captain. I'll send you the link to it, but it was like
Okay.
Rate Captain or Rate Captain.
Okay.
But yeah, it has some reporting on there too. So if you're, a small business owner and you want
Hmm.
something that's cost effective that you pay one time, that could be an
Hmm.
option.
Okay.
Otherwise, Bright Local is usually the one I recommend.
Okay, so Bright Local is also, yeah, I wanted to ask you like what tools you use to help
Mhm.
if there's other, we could talk about
Yeah.
SEO keyword research tools or just other tools that you use for this. So Bright Social, but it's not just about the posting, it also does other stuff, right?
Yes. So first, if you need like a free version, I think we all know Google Keyword Planner. You could start there and start,
Hmm.
figuring out some what I call seed keywords, and then you would add on like the location piece to that.
Hmm.
But then as far as paid ones, there's Bright Local. I think you can have one free business profile on there, but I don't think it includes the posting, like the
Okay.
scheduling of the posting. But I do think it will tell you like basic information about where you're ranking for certain things.
Okay.
And then again, it has the grid that I talked about earlier where it tells you where you're ranking for what word.
Hmm.
And then SEMrush. So if you really want to get serious about your local keyword research, then I would
Hmm.
recommend that one because there's a whole process. And I have, like we mentioned earlier before we got on the call, the free Google Business Profile Masterclass that teaches them how to set that up. But then as part of your package this past year, I submitted the local Spark course, and that goes through exactly how to do that. And I give them like the spreadsheet to get started, to have all of their keywords listed on there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we still need to be doing the keyword research.
Sorry, guys. Part of it.
Yeah. And figuring out that stuff. But I think it's great to, and do you think, so if someone is blogging, they don't need to be making all of their blog posts locally focused? No. Okay. So you can still sprinkle in and pepper in other,
because you don't want it to feel forced.
Right.
Like, you want to write about things you enjoy too. And if you're like, I can't write about another Athens, Georgia thing.
Right. And it's like low FODMAP foods in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It's kind of like, really? Yeah.
So, definitely post on like your niche and then kind of sprinkle in some local ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, yeah. So let's quickly share with people more about that masterclass that you have available. So anyone who doesn't have their profile set up.
Yes. So it's free, and I basically just walk you through. It was a live masterclass that was recorded. So you're getting the recording and you're getting any of the templates that we talked about, but basically kind of walk you through how to get it verified. And also we talk about the posting and what we talked about today, a little bit more in detail about what is local SEO and what should you do exactly? Like, where do you go to click kind of thing.
Awesome. Great. Well, we'll have the link to that in the show notes. So this has been great. I've definitely learned a lot about local SEO and all the many ways that it can really support businesses who are trying to reach a local market. And even, it doesn't have to be in your town. Like you mentioned, 1 to 2 hours away. That's still a pretty big radius, and just another tool to have in our marketing toolbox to reach people, because I know so many people are like, oh, I have to be on social media and I have to be posting all the time. Like, the whole point of what we just talked about today is to be getting in front of our customers and getting them to find us. And that's honestly what so much marketing is about. We are posting on social is also about like building relationship and having people get to know us a little bit more and get some value from us and all of that. But we are trying to kind of figure out where people are and reach them and engage with them. And this can be such a great way to do it. And it sounds like while there are things that you can be doing over time, it's like there are things that you can kind of integrate in your existing marketing efforts. And a lot of it is just kind of like setting it up and making sure it's set up correctly to begin with, which is some upfront time, but it's not like you're spending 2 hours a day coming up with a reel.
Nobody's expecting you to like post some beautiful video on your Google Business profile or like dance on there or anything like that.
Right. So it could be a little bit of a low effort thing with a great reward of getting you in front of more people. And then it allows you to leverage the things that you've already spent time on in your business, like your website or working with clients and encouraging them to write reviews, which is another thing I'm guessing too. If local SEO becomes something that's a priority for your business, when you are working with your clients, whether it's the offboarding process or even just midway through working with them, I'm assuming that we really want to be asking them to write a review on the profile.
And that part's tricky. So definitely, I feel like every day I say the words, I'm not a lawyer and this isn't legal advice. But if you can find a way to have it like at the footer of your email or something, like leave us a review on Google, but you just have to be careful about how you solicit reviews from HIPAA stuff.
So, okay. So it's a little different than asking for a testimonial, because you can.
Yes. Because you're asking them to like post something publicly versus like giving them the option to be anonymous. That's how I interpret it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Right. So you could probably figure out ways to just,
I mean, I think about like doctor's offices, and they're constantly asking for feedback and reviews, but it's just that piece of it being public. I think it makes it a little different. So that's my only caveat. Just figure out my type A self is like, we must do everything by the book.
Right. What language can I use that will make them feel that I don't want them to reveal what we worked on together?
Or that, they don't have to leave a review if they don't want to, and I won't think any differently of them if they don't.
Right. Yeah. But I like that idea of just kind of sprinkling it throughout little things here and there. And maybe it isn't so much of a kind of like ask, whereas you might ask for a testimonial and all of that. But for a review, maybe it's more of a just like voluntary.
Like when you send, I used to send like an offboarding packet when clients were done working with me, done with me.
It's just like enough.
I'm done with you. But, with the footer or in your email signature, you could say like Google reviews help us, whatever. Google, I can't think of the right phrase. Chat GPT, help me out. But Google reviews help us grow our business or whatever. Help grow our small
reach
business.
more customers.
Click here to leave one.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of thing.
Right. And it's just a little bit more. Yeah. Generic.
Subtle.
Yes. Subtle. Great word. Well, that was a great actual last little tidbit for folks because we know reviews are helpful, but it's like, how do we go about it in the right way? So great advice, not legal advice. Do what feels good for you or consult your lawyer. Any parting words of wisdom that you would like to leave listeners with?
I would say don't get overwhelmed because I know most of the clients are like me and think that they have to do all of these things at once, and you don't. Just pick the top 3 things, which I would say is verify your business profile, update the description, and add your logo image. Just start there. Start small.
Yep. Keep it manageable. I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge with us today, Courtney. And we'll have all the links in the show notes too, so people can explore and also connect with you. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of The Growth Show. A huge thanks to Courtney for joining us in the great conversation. Make sure you check out the resources that she has linked for us in the show notes and check out her website and the free masterclass that we talked about, because that is definitely going to help you get started on the right foot when it comes to local SEO. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with your fellow entrepreneurs. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to chatting with you on the next episode of The Growth Show.